Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Welcome. My name is Ashley with Recruiting Daily. If we haven't met, nice to meet you. I am here with Michael Goldberg today. Hi, Michael.
Hey, how are you? And hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for being on with us today. We really appreciate this. We're actually digging into quite a touchy subject and something that really needs to be addressed. Yeah. So, so we're looking at, at all these different angles of bridging the gap between sourcing and recruiting. Um, Again, just so everyone knows, we do these educational webinars based on what you have asked to learn, and we will continue this in 2020. So please keep an eye on recruitingwebinars.com. This one was one we saved till the end of the year because it's juicy. So we're just allowing everybody to log on right now, and we'll go through all of our housekeeping slides and everything like that while people log on. Michael, do you mind going to the next slide?
There you go.
So thank you so much. While we're waiting, just to let you know, you are in listen only mode. That means that you can hear us, but we can't hear you. But please don't be shy. There is a questions panel in your sidebar for GoToWebinar. Type any questions you want to ask Michael into that bar and I will relay. We'll be answering questions during the webinar today, so hit it up, be very specific so I know exactly what slide to refer to, and I'll send those over to Michael. Please share. Use the RDaily hashtag and share all over social media. Just because we've started doesn't mean people can't join in with us. And we are recording, so you will receive a copy of this slide deck and the recording after the webinar, along with a goodie. Michael, do you mind going to the next slide? From eSkill. See, I tried to time that.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's
Oh,
it's the
whoops.
way it goes when we wait. But today's webinar is being made possible by eSkill. They are an amazing company that provides pre-employment test and video interviews to help organizations hire and retain top candidates. Their clients range all over the spectrum, including hundreds of organizations in a variety of industry sectors such as call centers, retail, manufacturing, government, and technology. All of their clients have access to an extensive test library, and they are allowed to use the eSkill test editor to create customized skills assessment and on-the-job simulators so that they can quickly identify top candidates for their top job openings and weed out unqualified applicants. So please check these people out. They are fantastic. From my point of view, they are an amazing client, and I really appreciate working with them. They've also included a really nice educational download in your follow-up email. Michael, do you mind going to the next slide?
There he is.
So we're going back to this guy. This is
Yay.
Michael Goldberg. He is the CEO and founder of Hiring Transformed, and we've put his whole bio here for you to read through again, but I want to hand this over to you, Michael, because I know you will do a much better job at introducing yourself than I ever could. I'm giving it to you. Tell us
All
about
right.
yourself, please.
Sure. So my firm and my goal that I've launched this business 3 years ago is to help organizations hire talent faster, cheaper, and smarter. And so what does that mean? That means training recruiters and sourcers how to be more effective, more engaging, how to be storytellers, but really also how to build relationships with hiring managers. And I also go into organizations and do things like recruiting audits, looking at your processes, the tools and technologies that you have, and then provide recommendations, and then if needed to help, because a lot of times everyone's all deep down into filling positions and there's very little time made to to go out and implement the projects that I've recommended. So certainly have that. I also do contract recruiting or search recruiting if you want on a retained basis. But I also help companies in terms of cheaper by looking at what their spend is and how to make cuts in that spend so that you can be focusing your dollars on better tools and better strategies versus the same things that aren't working for you day to day. So that's my pitch. I've got about 25 years experience in HR and recruiting, really 20 years in talent acquisition. So happy to be here and look forward to presenting the topic.
Thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to let you know, I think that your thumb might be on the mic.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you now. That's a little bit better. It's kind of going in and out.
Weird. Okay.
Oh, so that's better. That's better. No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for being here and telling us about yourself. I've personally really been looking forward to this one. This topic interests me, and I know obviously everyone who's here is here for the same reason. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So if I can take it away, that will be good. I want to let everybody know, though, that, and if I can actually, that the webinar will go till about 10 of, depending upon where you live, 10 of 2, 10 of 3, I don't know, or 10 of 1, what is it, 10 of 1? Yeah, 10 of 1 or 10 of 2, and whatever you are. So we do have to finish up a little bit early, so be sure to ask questions along the way, and let's just jump right in here. So really today's topic is talking about, the differences. We know the differences between recruiters and sourcers, but I'm going to break down the differences just so and try to engage you all through the power of chat and see if you feel like there's anything else to be added. So always feel free to chime in and make this as interactive. It is hard when it's a one-way webinar. So here are the key takeaways. We're going to break down those differences. We're going to look at smaller organizations with no sourcing functions, and basically what can they do and how can the all-in-one recruiter/sourcer gain the skills they need to be more effective. I believe that recruiting and sourcing will eventually become or should be one function in small to mid-sized organizations, and then for the larger organizations, probably makes sense to have two different functions, but the two never seem to get along. So the other takeaway is how recruiters and sourcers can work more effectively together. So, and then finally, we're going to talk about what sourcing and recruiting managers, so for any of the leadership that's on, what can you all do to help really eliminate that the rift that sits there? Because it's really interesting. When I was I attended both SourceCon and ERE this year, and it was just interesting to hear the finger pointing on both sides. So we'll definitely address that. So, but before we get started, I want to launch a quick poll here. Ash, do you want to take over and open that poll so we can see?
There it is. It should be on top, and we've got voting happening now.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
Can I see the polling? How do I see the polling question? Sorry.
I think it has to be a surprise for you until all of the answers come in, but I'm actually quite surprised by how split this is.
All right. Well, give it another 10 seconds. Vote now. Answer the poll. All right.
Okay.
All right, let's shut that down.
Poll.
Closing poll. So I'm going to see the results here?
Yes, you'll be able to see the results on your screen.
Tell me when, because I don't see them yet.
Right now.
All right.
Here they are.
Whoops, I guess I need to open my, I can't see.
So we
it.
have,
tell me
we have 25%. We have 25% at two very distinct teams, 42% at yes, one team that works hand in hand, and 33% with no sourcing team but interested in adding one.
Interesting. Oh, that is a good mix, isn't it? So there's not one clear distinction. So that's good. So I've got, so this I think will be really helpful to all of you when you're when we're talking here. So, basically, let's see. I think you have to close the poll.
It should be closed. I'm not.
I got it.
There we go.
So, this is the typical relationship here. I don't know if it's moving on your screen. If it is, But basically, it's a rocky ride sometimes. I mean, especially the people that said we have two distinct teams. And you know, it's perception is reality. And just from attending both of a recruiter focused conference and a sourcing focused conference, there's that finger pointing here. I'll stop that so no one gets seasick here. So so basically, when we look at the differences, you know, recruiting, you know, you guys are doing intake meetings. There's one-on-one communication with the hiring manager. You know, when you talk to sourcers go, well, I don't talk to anybody. Well, you kind of do, because you have to engage the candidates, but and they may talk to hiring managers in some cases, and it's okay if some of you disagree with what I'm saying. I don't mind. I appreciate it, actually. But really, the recruiters are doing the intake meeting and the one-on-one communication with the hiring managers, especially after the intake meeting, you're presenting candidates. They're inputting the requisition into the ATS. They're interviewing the candidates who apply for the position. They're using the tools, ATS, LinkedIn, Indeed, blah, blah, other job boards. There's candidate engagement throughout the process. They're closing the candidate and they're offering an onboarding. Well, no wonder they don't have time to source. On the sourcing side, you know, you guys have to understand the requirements and responsibilities just as much as the recruiters do, but you all take a different approach. You all develop search strategies, you build candidate personas, you create and test search strings that are going to yield the best results with the most qualified candidates. You're using all kinds of tools out there, whether it be you know, GitHub or HireTool or Seek Out, to go out and find particular candidates. You know, a lot of the recruiters are just looking at the candidates who apply for the position. Your focus is finding and qualifying candidates, and then there's that always famous, you're going to build the talent pipelines. Well, you know, that's a lot as well, especially if a sourcer has, you know, most recruiters are managing between 40 and 65 recs, which, you know, and they don't have that much help. And the sourcers, really the main goal of sourcing was created was to help the recruiters and produce lists of candidates. But somewhere along the line, there was this huge breakdown because the lines weren't specifically drawn out, and human interaction basically tells us we need to know our boundaries. And while that's all great, you can know your boundaries, but you still have to work together when it all comes down to doing recruiting and sourcing, even if you're two distinct functions or one function altogether. So, but let's talk reality before we really dive into that. Let's look at some statistics here from 8fold.ai, and I think this is very telling. You know, when you talk to a CEO or a CHRO, it is difficult to find the right candidates to interview. I don't care what market you're in. If you're in a tight market or a loose candidate market, it is difficult to find the right candidates. Culture fit, technical skills, engagement, their values, their culture, and what they want to work in. Excuse me, it's never a 100% match. Recruiters tend to not understand our specific needs. Their number third reason for finding it difficult to place is they find it difficult to understand the potential candidates, understand the potential that candidates have. That's a big one, right? So as recruiters and sourcers, we need to be doing more than just presenting candidates to hiring managers in our little summaries. We need to be telling the story behind them and what they bring to the table and what their ability is. And then our job specs and targeting are not sufficiently personalized. That's so true. They're not personalized. We just throw up a job description and pray to God that somebody applies. And the sourcers are going out there trying to go off of what's in the job description, whether or not they're doing intake meetings. So in the same survey, and the top line is for the United States, but if we have people dialing in from around the world, in the UK, Germany, France, and the US, you can see, so we have specific roles that are hard to fill. 78%, right, are hard to, or say it's hard to fill, where in the UK, it's 72%. We can't find enough suitable candidates, 76% here. and then we don't have enough staff to wade through the resumes to find suitable candidates. That's because recruiters aren't, and sourcers have the tendency not to go out and aggressively look as hard as they can. And then we often need to find unconventional candidates to fill roles. The only one that beats the US is France on that last one at 68%. Well, that's great, but unconventional roles to me translates to what? It translates to you're settling. So in a post that I did for ERE, I came out with the 5 skills that are required for 2020. So really, you know, storytelling is going to be the best, or is going to be the most important aspect of the job of both sourcers and recruiters when it comes to being able to engage candidates. The next is going to be, they need to be true talent advisors. They need to be consultants. They need to be able to tell, they need to be able to read between the lines of what candidates are saying, understand it, and then convey that message and the abilities of that candidate to the hiring manager. The power of video is becoming more and more important, and the power of video, especially on LinkedIn, took off 2 years ago. Well, in about 2 years, they say, if you aren't doing video in any form or shape, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're an agency, or you're a corporate recruiter or a corporate talent acquisition leader or an HR leader, you're going to be left behind, because they're predicting that most things out on video are going to go and it's going to be out there. It's going to be too crowded. So where in-mails are too crowded or emails are too crowded, video is going to be the same way in a couple of years. But the people that are doing it now are going to be the people that have the base following and the folks that are going to follow you, and you're going to be able to build easier relationships now through video versus 2 to 3 years from now. Recruiters and sources will become what I like to call resourcers, which is my best attempt at recruiters plus sourcers. I couldn't come up with a weird word, so I didn't want to do rec sourcers or RE, I don't know. Anyway, they're going to become one. They're going to be asked to do more, and that's for the smaller to medium-sized companies. And you know, if the rift continues between sourcers and recruiters, or not the rift, but basically the non-engagement between the two functions, you know, the companies may say, hey, we're gonna start cutting bait, and you're gonna have to do, you know, whoever's left is gonna have to do both. Automation and data are going to then also be driving this. So how can you make your jobs easier? And the sources that are on the call, they're going to go, well, yeah, you know, using Calendly or chatbots or some type of automated tool that's going to help them produce candidates, whether it's Data Miner, you know, which is a Chrome extension, or even the Hire Tool or Seek Out tools to help you bring in information to make your jobs easier. That's where it's really going to be about. It's going to be about recruiters relying on the data from the sourcers to bring this all together. So, you know, what if recruiting and sourcing joined forces and became one position in small to medium-sized organizations? We're going to focus on the small to medium-sized organizations right now, and your new name is now you're a resourcer, because you're doing recruiting and sourcing. So the qualifications, I think, are going to look fairly similar. So strategic research, you're going to have to be a strong relationship manager. If you're not a relationship manager, that's a whole nother webinar, to which I talk about building relationships with your hiring managers and your executives, so that, and with your candidates, so that you have the relationships that you need, right? In order to attract and engage candidates. You're going to need to be very well versed on candidate experience, as well as be a data geek, and then a storyteller. So for the purposes of time and this presentation, we're really going to focus in on the strategic research, storyteller, and data geek. Because if you haven't heard enough about candidate experience and relationship management, well, call me and I can help you with that. So But I just think these other three are just as important and not as well known. So the assumptions are that if we were to have resources, that HR functions or recruiting functions would need to hire recruiting administrators or hiring coordinators, recruiting coordinators, whatever you want to call them. And they are going to be responsible for scheduling, doing affirmative action data if you're FOFCCP compliant, putting together the monthly reports, setting up interviews, whether it be pre-screen with the recruiters or with the hiring managers, drawing up the offer letters, dispositioning the candidates, and then helping with the onboarding, whether it's automated or not. Resources are going to be trained or given tools to research and proactively find passive candidates. Hire tools, Seek Out, Zap Info, just to name a few. And what's baffling to me is that, they have these tools. A lot of recruiting and sourcing departments will invest in these tools, but they'll only use a fraction of the tool and won't take the time to learn that tool. And that is so important. And it's a very important point for you to note that if you're going to invest in these tools, use the tools to their fullest function, because they're amazing tools and they do amazing things, and they make your life as a recruiter or a resourcer, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So small to medium-sized businesses generally have a recruiting team and no separate sourcing function. I think we've established that through our polling question. So let's keep these assumptions in mind. So Abe Lincoln said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." Everybody knows what that means, right? You got to focus on the tools and the tools that you have in order to hit your goal. So a lot of time is spent by sourcers in larger organizations. They are now called researchers because they go out and I'll show you what they research here in a few minutes. So basically, if you're going to do strategic research, here's what you're going to look at. Let's start with the left-hand side of the screen. You're going to look at direct competitors. You're going to look at what those direct competitors have who have similar technologies and or processes that you are recruiting for. You're going to look at companies that are hiring and companies that are laying off. There's I can't remember the gentleman's name, but there is a Facebook, a guy on Facebook that posts out pending layoffs of companies across the United States. If somebody knows that name and wants to throw it in chat, that would be helpful to everybody. If not, you can hit me up in email and I'll get that name to you. So you're going to look at indirect competitors who are looking for the similar skills and backgrounds, especially in technology. You can have all this technology and you think you're the only one having to recruit for it. That just simply isn't true, whether you're in the same industry or not. And then you also want to ask yourself, well, where have I had success before? And now, if it was, back during the Great Recession, then yeah, you had success then because there were tons of people out on the market. But look at where you've been having success. Look at your search strings where you've had success. Look at your, look at whether it's referrals or whether it's a certain string, a Google string, or a particular tool that you've used that's brought you success. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, folks. So, and this list could go on and on, but the goal is to do your research before you jump on LinkedIn or jump on Zip or any other job boards. Because if you don't have the patience to do a little bit of research, and I get it, I do get it. I was a corporate talent acquisition leader before I jumped into this. Managers want candidates now. They want you to produce them out of thin air. And we all laugh when they tell us that, but they don't think it's funny because that's what they really want. They think we can go out and find that perfect candidate and bring that person in within 7 to 10 business days. And that just simply isn't the case. Now, if you've done your research and you have pipelines of people, which is another place to do your strategic research, which I've listed the data sources you can tap into. You know, you're wasting your time just jumping in and saying, okay, I'll see who was applied, and then I'll go in on LinkedIn and start looking. And trust me, LinkedIn's a great tool. Everybody uses it. Some people have certain political opinions against it, but I don't. So what are some of the data sources? Well, there's the ATS, there's the CRM, certain lists, certain listservs that you've created. Obviously, LinkedIn Recruiter, but LinkedIn you can still use for free. You can still go out there and do Google searches and find basic information. Resumes, your resumes that are sitting in your ATS, and resumes you've received from other folks. Google, obviously, associations, conferences, events, your current employees, those are data points. And then if anybody on the call knows Dean DaCosta, and I don't know if there's a way, Ashley, for you to make that link live when you send it out. I think I made it live on the actual presentation. But if you click that, just look at Intel Tools and Insights, but you're going to see so much more from Dean. So this guy, I don't know if you know him, he's out of Seattle. He basically put together this incredible list from A to Z, different tools, different search engines. He has a lot of good information out there, so I strongly, and he doesn't charge for it, which is even more beautiful. So I'll stop here. Any questions? What's
well,
that?
we do have some feedback. It's Alan Fleurer. I always have a hard time pronouncing his name. So
right.
and
Thank you.
yes, and the Facebook group is called Layoff Alerts for TA Professionals. Thank you so much, Lee and David.
Did they put that in the comments?
Yes. That I love this platform for that. That's really cool. And I will make sure that link to Dean's page is live.
Sure. I mean, if you want to copy and paste that in the chat so people can access it, that might be another easy way for them. It's up to you if we can do that.
That's cool. I'll do that.
So any questions though outside of the recommendation on the Facebook page?
We don't have any right now. Everything has been very, very clear. So this has been great.
We hope. Okay. So,
yes, thank you.
right. Okay. So let's go to the next one here. Why is my? There we go. So one of the things that you want to do as you're preparing your research is you really want to put together a persona. And marketing agencies use these all the time because they use it more for who their potential clients are, who are the right people that we need to go after that will be attracted to our brand and potential buyers. Well, the same thing applies here. Look at the candidate as a buyer. So the benefits of creating persona profiles on your most actively recruited positions. I'm not saying stop down and do it every single time, but for hard to fill positions, I would definitely put together a persona. For average positions that could have some difficulty in finding it, especially if it has to have specific skill sets, you may want to put together a persona profile. But during slower times, you may want to put together personas on your commonly active roles. So basically, it helps create more relevant job descriptions and increase your applications. So you do the persona profile before you do the job posting. So when I say job descriptions, it's really it could be job descriptions too. As you're working with your compensation folks, whoever puts together your job descriptions, if you have a persona in place, you then are getting more specific you're going beyond what the average responsibilities are and requirements are. You're talking about these are the skills, these are the personalities, and I'll show you an example here in a minute. It's going to help you understand what the best recruiting channels and where they are for you to target your candidates. It's going to provide more data points for sourcing because there'll be added keywords in there. And then you're going to align your sourcing strategies and focus on better talent because you're not wasting your time just looking at every single profile you come across on Indeed, Resume, or LinkedIn. So, and basically what it does is it helps you create a recruiting go-to-market strategy. So we're bringing more data into the picture. So for current employees, when you're talking, and you're going to talk to your hiring managers and your current employees. And I pulled this from Beamery. I thought it was these next two things that pop. The other one that'll pop up will also be from Beamery. So the topic is interest. What part of your role do you enjoy most? Motivations. Why did you apply to this company? Culture. What do you like about the culture, and so on and so forth, right? So this kind of gives you some simple questions you can ask. You know, where do you spend your time online? What skills do you think that'll help you succeed? How amazing is that? And then for stakeholders, that persona checklist should be, and your stakeholders are going to be, could be executives, it could be your hiring managers, it could be people you know. What job titles should we look for? Where do they work? What do they do? What are their skills? What's their level of experience? What personal traits are you looking for? And you think, well, that's kind of a fluff question, but it really isn't, because personal traits matter in terms of team dynamics. And if you have someone that has different traits, different values than the rest of your team members, and not that everybody has to be the same and be the same robot doing the same thing, but if someone is more of an introvert and you require, it's a sales job and you require extroverted skills, you know, is that person really going to fit and be a successful salesperson? It's up in the air, and people can argue that yes, they can, or they may not. So what typical goals do you expect to see out of this person? How are you currently interacting with these people? So as you can see, you're asking basic questions to come up with a targeted profile. So in the end, the persona profile looks like something like this, and this is what most marketing agencies will do, is they will draft how we're going to market Mary, right? Or even agencies can do the same thing. They choose not to do this, but they could. The background, he has a BA in digital marketing from a top tier school. Watering holes, which means it's not where they go drinking, it is where they hang out online. So Twitter chats, inbound.org, various blogs and forums, roles and experience. You know, she's in that 2 to 5 year range. She's worked at one of our competitors. The cultural characteristics, she likes working in a fast-paced environment, a startup environment, and always learning and enjoys new challenges. So if your job doesn't give that person the ability to be challenged, that person's not a good persona for you. It's not a good fit. And the person's probably not going to stay very long. We're not even talking about retention on this call. And that's a whole nother webinar. So skills, the goals, as you can see here, their interests, their objections. So hates long interview processes. That's a hell of a data point, right? And you know, when I've done interviews, I've had interviews go on for 3 to 4 months, 15 interviews later, and you're thinking, when's this torture going to end? Because you either want me now or you don't. So hates impersonal communication. So what does that mean? Well, it means she doesn't want to get a, hey, we're still looking at other candidates. We'll get back to you. Bye. Right? It should be personalized. Hey, Mary, I know this has been a little bit longer process than usual, but I can assure you you're still in the running. I still want to talk with, we still want to talk with you and bring you in for the final interview. Should have some dates wrapped up within the next 1 to 2 weeks. Those are the kind of things you really want to focus in on the persona. Any questions about the persona? Ashley, do we have anything?
Let me just take a look here. No, we do have a couple. Your mic is in and out again.
Oh.
I just wanted to let you know. So yeah, we do have a comment from David. He says he's worked in companies that have recruiters, sourcers, and researchers, and there's a strategic usage for all of those 3 roles. I just wanted to mention that since he took the time to make that comment. And thank you, David. But yeah, so we're good. We're good. Again, everything is incredibly clear. So
okay,
that's good. That's great.
All right. So really, let me go to the control panel here. All right. So, now we're going to, now that we've kind of talked about, and again, it's hard to present all this information in an hour's time. But and I do have training programs that go into a lot deeper of a dive. But now we're going to talk about storytelling. So stories that attract, they focus on people. They have pop. They have that wow factor. It could be about learning and development. It could be about work practices and routines. It could be about company values or the cultural vibe. Your space and location. So I'd probably say nobody cares about your space and locations. We're so focused on engaging people with stats about the company. We have 500, we got 5,000 employees in 45 locations, and we match on 401k. They don't care about that. What they care about is something like this. All right, this is from a friend of mine, Steve Fogarty. Posted last week. If you recognize that guy, that's the CEO of Twitter. He works for Twitter. He's the talent acquisition leader, talent experience leader there. So what a day yesterday. Jack Dorsey decided to stop by. They just had a baby. And not too often a CEO cares enough to visit remote employees' home office. Thank you, Jack, for caring. Always wanting to learn about how employees experience Twitter. And it goes on. It's rare that the CEO shows up at the house. So, I mean, this is, he's showing his family. He's showing the CEO actually giving two hoots about him and his family. And then, on the learning and development one, here at Starbucks is very good at doing this. We're so excited to see Jen graduate in December. Now they're saying, hey, she's graduating. We're so proud of her. What does that do for retention? Well, it does a lot, right? So really, when you're telling stories, you're telling stories. You want to know who your target audience is. For our purposes of recruiting, it'd be candidates who are either actively looking, but better yet, who are more passive. The goal can be immediate and concrete to have your audience act on a goal, right? Get into your business and determine what the challenges are as it growing pains. Who's the right character of the story? In recruiting, the videos and the stories to get the most engagement are hiring managers that do the videos and the stories and the posts on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. Why is that? Because you're putting a face with a name and you're putting your hiring manager out there. I did a presentation last week to a group of agency recruiters like, oh, we wouldn't do that. I'm like, why not? Well, somebody else will try to recruit her out of the organization. Okay, well, if she's enjoying her job, you shouldn't be afraid to do that, because now you're telling the story of how someone in your organization, it could be a would-be peer, it could be another member of that hiring manager's team, and how they were successful. But in the end, there's going to be resolution when you're telling a story to a goal that the main character had at the end. And the recruiter and the sourcers can be the main characters, but the better heroes are the peers and the hiring managers of the story and what they went through and the challenges they overcame. But in the end, the goal is to have a good ending, whether it's the enemy is destroyed or the boy meets girl or justice is served. But the main character can also learn a lesson. So not everything has to go swimmingly. So keep that in mind when you're telling your stories, that you can tell stories of success, and that's great, but you can also tell stories of struggle and adversity to show that you're real and authentic. Because not any one of us on this call, me included, Ashley, of course, is perfect in every way, but we've all encountered roadblocks that we couldn't get over. We've all had those obstacles. And are we crying from the rooftops on those stories? No, we're just crying about success. So it kind of makes you look perfect. What if you made yourself look imperfect? Is that a big deal? No, it's not. So, I'm inviting
Michael?
consultants. Yeah, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. Are you open to a couple of questions? We've had a few come in.
Go. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, well, just going back to the last slides, cultural benefits. How would you utilize the method of expressing company cultural benefits on social media when you are a recruiting agency, as we wouldn't want the candidate to apply directly? So reworded, how to market end client when it's an agency.
So when you're talking about the culture of the organization and you're an agency, you don't have to give the client's name. There's nothing in the rules that say you have to do that. But as an agency recruiter, you should talk about the culture, because I can bet, I'll put $100 down that your candidates ask, well, what's the culture like? You'll talk about the industry. You'll say, oh, it's a public accounting firm, or it's a manufacturing facility in Plano, Texas, right? All right, that's great, but talk about the culture of the organization in your video. Why is it, what's the cool vibes there? What makes it a great culture? What do employees say about the culture? And you can ask them to pull that information from employee engagement surveys that they do. If they were up for 100 best companies to work for, they have survey data that they can share that makes them more marketable. So you don't have to give away the name. I get the protection of the name, but to describe the culture would be to sit down with the hiring manager and understand that culture, spend some time. As a vendor, you have the right to spend some time really kind of seeing the process, because you're trying to build that relationship with the hiring manager as well. Even though you're an outside agency, it's still your role and goal to build a relationship with that person. I hope that answered the question.
If you have any further questions, just pop them in there and I'll relay. Do you mind going back to personas for a moment? We had a few questions come in.
Sure.
And if you have any more questions for slides up to the culture slide, just let me know. Okay, so now we've got one that says, his hiring supervisor gives deer in the headlight looks whenever I talk about wanting to create fake personas off of real people who are top performers. How do I explain this concept to him in plain language?
To me, it's pretty simple. It's, we're creating personas to help, number one, give me more data so that I can go out and find the people that you need faster. Without that data, all I have are words on a page that describe what you're looking for, what they'll be doing, and what's required in order for them to be considered quote unquote qualified. So I think you put it into try to think of it as the way I look at it as the cost of inaction. And I can't put a dollar figure on it. The only way to do that would be, look, if I don't have the data and we don't have the persona, I'm not going to be able to find the position as fast. Each day that position sits empty, it's costing you money. It's not real money, but it's costing it, technically it is, because especially if it's a salesperson and they're a revenue generator for the company, yet you don't want to take the time to give me a profile, that's costing the company money and delaying the process. So the more data I have, the more data points I have to go out and find the right candidate for you, Mr. or Ms. Hiring Manager, the faster I can do it, the less time it spends vacant, and the more productive your group will be, because they're not taking over the work of that vacant position. I hope that makes sense. And I'm happy to have an offline conversation with that person if you want to talk about it more. I do want to keep track of time here. It's almost 1:45.
We have one more question about the personas. Are you good for that? Okay. And he says, yes, offline is fine. Michael's contact information is at the end of this slide deck that you will receive after the webinar. So you're welcome. And okay, so how do you recommend staffing agencies to use the persona profiles, in particular when you may not have access to the team members? Is that question clear enough to answer?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. If you've built a good relationship with your hiring managers that you're working with as an agency recruiter, and you're spending time and you're doing quarterly visits, or you've really delivered for that candidate, why not say, hey, I'd like to interview you and a couple of your top performers. And you can do it all at once so you're not taking everybody's time up by spending 3 or 4 hours there. You put them all together in a room. Or you have 2 different meetings where you're interviewing the hiring manager once to talk about his or her view of the persona, and then talking with peers, would-be peers, so that they don't feel stifled because the manager's in the room. Right. So my advice is to go out and again treat it as, I need data points. The more data points I have, the faster I can help you fill that role. And again, happy to have an offline conversation because there's a much deeper answer, and I'm happy to talk with the person asking that question offline.
Thank you, Michael.
Sure. Okay. So, I really need to say anything more here. So in larger companies, only in New York City, no, I'm kidding. In larger organizations, there's too much of this. So like I said, I went to that conference, and people are just pointing fingers left and right. You're just like, stop. We're all working for the same cause. We have to find candidates. We have to find them fast because we're losing money, or we're losing productivity in a certain area, and we can't get goals accomplished. And when that finger pointing starts, that's when it starts to affect the overall business strategy, if that makes sense. So stop finger pointing and bring balance to your 2 separate teams. So you have a dual partnership, and these are just some suggestions. Here's the how. Recruiters and sourcers work together through candidate identification process by attending the intake meeting. They're both working on the research strategy. They're both involved in the persona conversations and the story creation. So it's not just, oh, you have to do this, that's not my job. Bull. It is your job. It's both your people. It's both of your jobs. You need to bring it together. You need to work together as one. Communications. That is a huge misstep in recruiting and in sourcing. I've heard from friends who are very strong sourcers that there's just this breakdown of communication, not only between recruiter and hiring manager, sourcer and hiring manager, but recruiters and sourcers just aren't setting up things like accountabilities and timeline expectations of when the sourcer will have candidates to that person. Providing frequent updates, just if it's once at the beginning of the week and once twice at the end of the week. At the beginning of the week, the sourcer says, here are the positions I'm working on for you. And by the end of the week, I'll have 3 candidates per position for you. Right? Expectation set, accountability met. Recruiter goes, fine, I'm also going to do some sourcing. Tell me where you're going to be looking at your candidates so I can go look at my candidates on a different source. And that helps take the pressure off of each other for the sourcers to bring candidates into the funnel, because it's a partnership. It's a true partnership. And then delivery, it's delivering qualified candidates matching the personas and the hiring manager's expectations. Because sometimes we get into this panic mode where we're just like, oh, we're going to throw it out there, and the sources just dive in and go, oh, I got another position that I'm working for Jim, and I'm going to get Jim 10 candidates in the next 3 weeks. It's just not good if you can't deliver when you say you're going to deliver. So to me, this is the how. This is the entire strategy of simplifying how you're going to work together. Any questions on this? Because I'm sure people are going, well, we tried this, but I can't seem to do it. Any comments or thoughts?
So far, we're good, but they may come in a few minutes. Thank you.
After that marinates a little bit, right? So
yes,
I think
definitely.
This is probably, to me, if you get anything out of this for the larger companies, if you get anything out of this, I would say this slide is for you. And if you want to talk about it further, again, I'm available. So what's the manager's role in eliminating the divide? Well, you're going to perform. So you have a sourcing manager, a director of sourcing, a manager of sourcing, and then director of TA and a director of recruiting, whatever you want to call them, right? You're going to set performance goals and KPIs together that not only are for your own department, but align with the overall HR strategy and align with the overall business strategy. So don't just set goals to set goals saying, well, my time to fill, I'm going to bring it down because my source is going to bring me candidates in 10 fewer days. Bull honky, bull, whatever you want to add on the end. It's not the way it works. You have to align your goals and your KPIs with the business and then the departments that you're working with. You're then going to cross-train recruiters and sourcers in each area of responsibility. So whether or not sourcers don't like, it's funny, they go, oh, a lot of recruiters also say this to me too, I'm a total introvert. No, you're not. You're not an introvert. If you were an introvert, you shouldn't be in recruiting, maybe sourcing, but you still have to deal with people and you still have to be able to engage and tell stories. So walk a mile in the other person's shoes to really understand some of the difficulties. Because what you'll find on the recruiting side is if they don't have HR and recruiting coordinators, they have to do a lot of the administrivia themselves. And if they're an OCCP compliant company, it's even worse because you got to document and document and document. How else can you eliminate the divide? Meet once a week. What's the talent pipeline? What's the candidate delivery? Not only candidate delivery from sourcer to recruiter, but from recruiter to hiring manager. What are our successes? What are the successes we've had that week? And what are the missed opportunities? And where can we improve? I think recruiters should also participate in the process helping in research and story creation, and that they could both partner with doing the video together if they can't get the hiring manager and or would-be peers to do the video. But don't just post, I've got an accounting job on LinkedIn. Here's the link. It's so impersonal. So that's really about it. And as much as we've talked about here, there's my contact information. I am happy to provide a 30-minute call to anybody on this that attended and took the time to be on the call, or watching and repeat to sit down. Let's talk about your recruiting challenges or where you need help. And I'm willing to give everybody 30 minutes for free to talk about how I can help you. So that's my contact information. So any further questions?
We do have one more. Well, actually, we have them popping in. Okay, great. First of all, Rima says this is great content. Smiley face. So thank you so much, Michael. And then
Good.
Mary has asked, what % do recruiters and sourcers actively source in that model? She's referring to the slide before the last slide. For example, recruiter 10%, yes, recruiter 10%, sourcer 90%. How do you set good expectations there?
That's a really good question, Mary. I'd have to think about it, but I would say that, whatever the sourcing metrics say, I mean, that's the problem, is their recruiting metrics and their sourcing metrics, but it really boils down to the company. So I think when you're sitting down with timeline expectations, you really have to whiteboard this out and say, okay, when we sit down, like when I was in corporate recruiting, we generally had a 40-day window to find candidates. And we did sourcing and recruiting together, all right? And we said, when we sat down with our intake meetings, we told managers, look, we're going to get you 3 to 5 qualified candidates within the next 15 business days. All right. And then you're going to get back to me within 72 hours. So now we're holding the hiring manager accountable to get back to us. So we're staying within that timeline. So if you're having issues, let's say the sourcer's having issues identifying candidates, I would say that if the goal is, let's say 15 to 20 business days for the recruiter to present the candidates, that really within 10 to 15 business days that are up to 20, I'd say up to 18 business days to present the candidates to them, and that gives them a couple of days to turn it around. I mean, but if you have video interviewing, that there could be accountability issues there. I mean, there's just so many different variables, and I'm not avoiding the question. think it just depends on each company, and I'm happy to talk offline to that person and kind of listen to. I'd have to understand the scenario a little more before I could do that. But generally, you know, I would say that recruiters and sourcers, at least at the top of the funnel there, or the top of this process funnel, that they're working together 50-50, that they're partnering at least until the launch of the position out on social media or out on the career website where you're posting the job. I think the two should be working hand in hand, and then communicate. And then that's when the accountability starts to hone in and say, okay, recruiter says I've got 2 qualified candidates. Can you get me another 3 to 4 qualified candidates for me to phone screen in the next 10 business days? Source is going to look at their workload and say, yes, I can do that. But again, it just varies on the size of the company, the size of the sourcing and recruiting teams. Does that help, question asker?
That makes perfect sense to me. And Mary says she'll send you an email to dive in deeper. So
I look forward to
awesome.
hearing from Mary. That's great.
We are 5 to the hour. So are you,
Yep.
do you need to log off for the day or?
Well, no, if we've got more questions, keep going. The phone has not rung. So I'm expecting a call for the next. If you want to know more about storytelling and engagement, I'm going to be on the Higher Power, HIRE Power radio broadcast. It's a Facebook Live event. It starts at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central. So I've got about another minute, and I probably do need to jump off.
Okay, cool. So yeah, definitely join Michael over there. We do have one more question. How do you bring synergy and earn trust if everyone is remote?
Well, we have things called Zoom. We have, and right, and that's an important point, right? So people are 5 times better. You build trust 5 times faster if you're doing a video call. So it's not just picking up the phone and having a phone discussion, but you're on Zoom or you're on what's the other one? The Microsoft Sync or whatever it's called. Whatever tool you're on, you have the ability to get on. They see your face, you see their face. You can whiteboard on these tools. I mean, it's gotten so advanced. So you can bring teams together on a call. But I think if you're going to be doing this throughout the year, you probably need to all be in one room together in a planning strategy session. You know how these executives go off and do their strategy sessions? I'd recommend doing a recruiting session. I did it with American Heart Association, and it worked great because now we built trust because we saw each other once a year. And we talked about different tools and goals and technologies. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense to me. So you just utilize those tools that we have, face-to-face interaction. Yes. And we do have one more clarifying question about the Facebook Live. I'll type it into the chat if you don't mind just spelling that out one more time.
Sure. Higher Power, HIRE Power Radio.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Well,
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're great, and I really appreciate everybody attending. And again, there's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me at michael@hiringtransform.com, and my phone number's there. I'm open to any follow-up questions, and again, willing to spend 30 minutes with you and talk about the challenges that you're looking at for 2020. I can't believe the decade's almost over. I just can't believe it.
It's crazy. It has gone by so fast. Well, the decade, the year, the month. That's the story every year, though, for sure. Thank you so much for being on with us today, Michael. This was a fantastic presentation. I personally learned a lot. Oh, yes.
All right.
Thank you. Well, you have good luck with your Facebook Live. We really enjoyed you here today. Thank you everyone for being here with us today. Again, if you want to get in touch with Michael personally, all of his contact information will be at the end of this slide deck that will be sent to you no later than tomorrow afternoon in email. So look for an email from info@recruitingdaily.com. If you don't get that by chance, you can go right back to the recruiting webinars landing page. The video recording and a copy of the slide deck will be there for you to access. Or you can email me, Ashley@recruitingdaily.com. If you are in LA in December, we are having our HRTX event there at Shutters on the Beach, which is basically this amazing hotel that I never even thought I would have the opportunity to walk into. Star-studded. We have Dean DaCosta, Shally Steckerl, a whole lineup of fantastic presenters there for a sourcing and recruiting workshop. So we will be covering some of this type of content as well. Just get in touch with us. Let us know if you're interested. Thank you again for being here. Email with any questions. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you later.